I don't think of cybersecurity as something that is kind of a meat grinder. I think of cybersecurity as like someone who has an active mind and an active imagination to feed their curiosity and constantly drive change, right?
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Phosphorus IoT Security Podcast. I'm your new host, Phillip Wylie. I just recently joined Phosphorus. I'm an experienced podcaster, and so I'll be one of the new hosts of the IoT Security Podcast, as well as our live stream, Phosphorus Live. And today I'm joined by one of our leaders and CISOs from our North Texas community, Anand Singh. So Anand is part of the CISO XC conference and community there. He's on their board there and he's doing a lot of cool things, has a really cool background, and I'm going to let him share that. So welcome, Anand.
Thank you, Philip. Hello, everyone. My name is Anand Singh. I've been a very long time CISO, as you can tell probably from the state of hair on my head. Most recently, I'm with Symmetry Systems. I'm their Global Chief Security and Strategy Officer. But prior to that, I spent 7 years as the global CISO of a company called Alchemy Technology, which is one of the pioneering startups in Dallas area. They do digital banking. My career includes Fortune 10 companies like United Health Group and Fortune 50 companies like Target Corporation. Philip, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. It's great to finally sit down and talk with you. We really hadn't had much a chance to speak in the past, always run into each other at CISO XC and other community events in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're really blessed to have so many options. We've got one of the best cybersecurity communities in the country. People may not know that, but you show up. I mean, we've got a really strong ethical hacking community. We're Dallas Hackers Association, a local DEF CON group, and then CISO XC come along, and there's a really strong CISO community there. So it's really great to see what those three gentlemen and everyone associated with it has done. They've done amazing things, and it's great to see that they're spreading to Austin.
Absolutely. I have had the fortune of being associated with CISO XC from the very beginning. It has been almost 4 or 5 years at this point. And one of the things that CISO XC does really well is they contribute a ton to various charities, which has kind of created a stronger sense of community. But in addition to that, we have ISA as well, which is one of the strongest chapters in the country. And I actually went to one of their events, and I was surprised to see there were close to like maybe 1,000 people in the area in their kind of the Star Wars movie event. So
yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's kind of bad that I forgot to mention them because they're like the biggest ISSA chapter in the world, and so they put on a good conference each year as well as the monthly meetups, and they're also doing happy hours, so a great place to network. One of the things I always tell college students I'm mentoring is, you go to the OWASP meetings, the Dallas Hackers and DC 214, like some of the cloud meetups to learn, and then you go to the North Texas ISSA to network with people and find jobs. So it's kind of interesting. One of the things I guess you mentioned is you're also, you've done some work as a professor as well.
Yes, absolutely. So over the years, this has been a very strong desire in me to share the experiences and with up and coming students. So I was actually a professor at Mitchell Hamline School of Law for probably close to 4 years. And it was a very interesting opportunity because I was talking to lawyers who are up and coming, and many of those lawyers are trying their hands at cybersecurity practice. So I was teaching them incident management and response and some of the niceties associated with that so that they can be better prepared for the cybersecurity type of legal issues and events. And so I did that for several years. I've done hardcore teaching as well with St. Thomas University. So I was teaching object-oriented analysis and design and software engineering. And most recently, I've also been associated with IANS, and I'm on the faculty of IANS. So I get a chance to understand the problems faced by various companies throughout the country and throughout the world, and kind of give them some advice on how they can tackle those issues.
Very good. So where did you kind of get your start before you got into management? And as a CISO, kind of what was your specialty? What area did you start out in?
Very interesting question, because when I started, I started actually with Cray Research, right? So growing up, like you, as early as like fifth or sixth grade, I heard about supercomputers and all the amazing things that supercomputers can do, right? So that got me excited about technology, and I wanted to work in supercomputers. So when I graduated with my master's from Purdue, the first thing that I did was I joined Pay Research, and I was writing code for their compilers. Think about this, right? I mean, writing C or C++ is hard, but if you are creating the compilers for C and C++, the parsers and all that, right? That is probably one of the hardest things that can be done in the technology space. And so I was writing the compilers for the Cray supercomputers. Really, really enjoyed it. I also got a chance to work on some pretty cool things like how weather data prediction happens, how nuclear bomb simulation, right? Because the original way to understand how nuclear bombs would detonate is to actually detonate one, right? They used to detonate one in the Pacific Ocean by New Zealand, right? But a lot of that can be simulated actually via supercomputers, so you don't need to explode a real one, which is good for environment, good for, I guess, also not wasting an actual ammunition, right? So that was kind of my start in the technology space. But over time, I gradually migrated to cybersecurity because one of the things that I really like about this space is the fact that it's not static. You don't one and done, right? You cannot do that because the threats change, the attackers change, the technology changes. Now AI is everywhere. So the amount of change that this space sees is phenomenal. And so it's a great, for a curious mind like myself, this is the perfect profession. And I started as a practitioner, and then over time, like at Target was the first time when I migrated to being a manager of their .com security. And then at United Health Group, I led security for Optum Insight, which is one of their largest services divisions.
Oh, very cool. I'm familiar with Optum. That's where I have my healthcare savings account through.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. That's a really awesome background, especially starting out in the supercomputing. So you're kind of exposed to some of the things that really have come to the forefront now. So some of the big concerns now is quantum computing. And then with AI, so a lot of the things that you touched on back then was kind of a glimpse into the future and what's now our reality. So what are your thoughts on AI? Because I've noticed you really kind of gotten involved in that area, seem to be doing a lot of studying and speaking about that.
Absolutely. I think this is, so I want to take a step back and talk briefly about how the world is changing, right? So if you think about this, Philip, when we were younger, right, it looked like, you are still young, I'm kind of on the older side.
Yeah, I'm kind of older than you probably think.
So as you think about this, like when internet first came out, it took like 10 to 15 years for it to be mass adoption, right? E-commerce came out like 5, 6 years to be mass adoption. But if you think about AI, in such a short amount of time, it has just become pervasive. Everyone is using AI in some way, shape, or form, right? I mean, think about the model context protocol. In just like 4 or 5 months, everyone is using MCP at this point of time, right? The larger point being that there's massive amount of innovation happening in much more compressed time frames, right? I call that innovation compression. So that's what got me excited about kind of AI, and I've been at the kind of the leading edge of it from the very beginning. I've been a big proponent of it from the very beginning. And what I enjoy about it is, like, number one, the tech is very deep. You truly have to understand the tech to be able to make meaningful decisions. Number two, it is like a fundamental rewiring of society, right? Meaning that there is an opportunity for us to raise our game and be at a higher plane because mundanity can be delegated to the AI, right? So I think that's the other reason. The way I think about the AI space, Philip, is my, my, the way I kind of tackle the bigger problems is like try to pass it out into multiple categories, right? So the categories that I see in AI are, number one, AI for security, right? How can security tooling, security technologies benefit from AI? Then you can flip it and say security for AI. How can you secure AI adoption by business units inside of the organization, right? The third category would be the RLHF, right? Reinforced learning through human feedback, right? Because there have been many studies that indicate that AI just based on data, it starts to fray after some time, and the quality of output decreases, right? So there is human intervention through learning and feedback actually improves the quality of AI and keeps it real, right? And then the fourth and final category that I'm really interested in is how attackers are using AI and how they're kind of like hardwiring their attacks using AI to make it easier and more potent, right? So those are the four categories that I see AI in. I've been kind of writing a ton on these four categories over last couple of years.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's cool to see all the automation. I was working for a company for a while that had an automated pen testing solution, and I have like over a decade experience as a pen tester, and it really amazed me how much they could automate pen testing. And so many other companies are doing that. I've learned of a company recently that they're actually on HackerOne's top 10, their product, and it's web app, and that's one of the areas some of the other automation wasn't able to really automate well, but now they're figuring that out. It's just amazing. The nice thing is with these tools to be able to scale what we're doing. But a lot of times people focus so much on the offensive security side, the hacking piece, but I'm really excited to see what happens on the defensive side.
Yeah.
What happens when you can get this data in more real time, so your firewall is bringing this data in, there's some new kind of attack out there, and to be able to change the firewall rules quickly to prevent that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think there is I think that's a good segue into another topic that I've been thinking about, which is like dynamic configuration changes in the event of like what is being observed at the perimeter and inside the company, right? I think that's a very interesting space. I think you guys are doing some of that with the IoT devices and what you can do for the upkeep and management and maintenance and visibility into the IoT footprint of the of an organization, right? So I'm kind of really excited about what Phosphorus is doing, and I think there is a with the right blending of AI and some of the technology associated with that, I think there's an opportunity to significantly optimize and reduce the complexity because IoT is one of the most complex things that we were discussing before, right?
Yes.
To be able to use AI and kind of simplify that space and empower organizations to manage their IoT footprint, I think there is probably a significant amount of possibility in that space.
So based on your experience as a CISO and over the years, why do you think that IoT and OT has been overlooked so much?
I think it has been overlooked because it has been managed by organizations kind of outside of what security has been traditionally responsible for, right? So think about this, right? I mean, who manages badge readers in most companies? It could be like all the way from HR organization to someone in the help desk to someone in the IT organization. So very, very fragmented. Think about like data, like your data rooms and the sensors in the data rooms, etc. Right? I mean, many times like they are just left there to be set once, and then no one even cares about it. Cameras set once, and no one even. Many times like cameras have stopped working, and no one even knows. Right? Some of these are like forgotten IoT devices, so not getting care and feeding and upkeep. So I think like without realizing, many organizations have just not put a significant amount of discipline on that. But given that, like if you go back and look at perhaps the first major IoT attack, Phillip, I mean, it was like Target and how the heating and cooling vendors' access was exploited to perpetrate one of the marquee attacks in our industry, right? So this is my call out to listeners here to kind of just think about, like, if your IoT devices are connected to the internet, they can be a gateway to your information and infrastructure. So, like something to think about as you think about your strategies.
Yeah, it's something worth mentioning. Something that was recent was that Akira ransomware, where that ransomware gang couldn't gain a foothold in the environment, so they exploited a camera. They were able to attach to the camera and do an SMB share. So internally, the devices trusted it because it probably thinks that cameras are not a risk. And the ransomware gang was able to do like an SMB share and then deploy the ransomware there because this is like a trust device or either an ignored device.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, you also see in organizations where people don't think about the printers.
Yeah.
As a pen tester, we go in and we test printers because sometimes you can get credentials from those printers. A lot of cases, firmware is not updated. They're using default credentials. So this is kind of a easy way for threat actors to get in. And it's kind of things are changing now where it's so hard because these endpoint detection systems are so difficult to get access to workstations and servers. So you have to look for alternate solutions.
Yeah, I'll share a couple of things in response to that, Philip. Like the first thing I want to say here is that I don't think any AI is ever going to replace you, Philip, because you think like a pen tester and the amount of creativity that requires to be a pen tester. Like you can do the mundane and the easy, but the sophisticated, I think, will always require a human, right? So
That's good for all practitioners out there. That's
yeah,
one of my favorite quotes is you won't be replaced by AI, you'll be replaced by someone that uses AI.
exactly.
It's just amazing how it can scale you to do so much more.
Yeah.
Even thinking on the pen testing realm, at one time we didn't have vulnerability scanners. Just actually, I'm old, but that was before I got into it. But it was all manual, and they added vulnerability scanners. Who would think about doing pen tests without vulnerability scanners when you have a lot of scope to test? So
I think that goes to kind of what I was saying earlier, right? I mean, the opportunity that AI brings to people like us is it allows us to raise our level and not get bogged down by the mundane of the day to day, right? Using AI pen testing, you can kind of knock off the like what are the access pathways, etc. But to conduct the actual exploit in a sophisticated way, it will probably require some kind of human intervention or some human thinking to kind of blend that in, right? Which also goes to the RLHF. You can continue to make AI smarter through RLHF. But what I wanted to share, you mentioned printers. I wanted to share an interesting anecdote about that. For one of my previous companies, I was talking to a prospect at that point of time. They had been actually banned by one of the largest credential stuffing prevention services in the country. So, and they were not sure why. It turned out that their printers were using default ID and password. They had been taken over by threat actors, and they were using that to perpetrate credential stuffing attacks. And because the external facing IP was kind of a single IP address, their entire organization was banned by this credential stuffing prevention service, and they had no idea why. So we actually investigated it and figured out as to exactly what was happening there, which just goes to show, right? I mean, you cannot overlook this critical discipline. You have to you have to merge kind of how you are managing your cloud infrastructure and your on-prem infrastructure servers, virtual servers, and all these, right? You have to blend your IoT into that mix so that you have a comprehensive framework for security. You cannot, if you are not managing your IoT, all you are doing is like probably more than half of your assets are unmanaged at that point in time.
do you have any advice for people to better manage and secure those devices?
Yeah, my advice is like I think you kind of want the solutioning that converges the two. I mean, there is like you have to think about your infrastructure as kind of one and the same, including IoT devices, and you have to make sure that it is like you have all the visibility into it. You have asset management associated with the inventory of all devices, including IoT devices, patching and firmware. One of the things that we discussed earlier was the default password, right? I mean, so many, even router, like not just like the kind of infrastructure that we are discussing, even the routers, like some of the switches, many of them have never seen a different password than a default password that they came with, right? I bet when you start your like pen testing activities, that's one of the things that you test out. Are they using default credentials or not, right? So
Yeah, because as a pen tester and then threat actors alike, they have dictionaries or these files with all these default credentials that they download from like breaches, and then and then there's like lists. You can go out there and find lists of default credentials for different devices.
absolutely. I do want to take an angle on the conversation, Philip, which is about you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, how IoT devices have been exploited to get access to assembly shares and data inside of the enterprise, right? So to me, kind of that's the other piece of the puzzle that organizations need to manage really well. The data security, knowing where all of your data resides. Believe it or not, right? Many organizations are like people understand their sliver of data, but no one understands the comprehensively how the data is structured in the entire organization. Now CDOs, chief data officers, and data organizations are coming together, but they are struggling with how to kind of put everything together. And it's also going to be important for AI to understand where data is at, because you are training this data to train your this data to train your AI models, right? And I don't know if you saw that study from Stanford, but they said that by 2028, most organizations will run out of training data. It's not that they are running out of training data, it's just that people are using their slivers of data rather than understanding like there's a lot more data that resides in the enterprise. They just don't know where it is. Right? So I think coming back full circle here it's so crucial to understand the data footprint of your entire organization and use and enable your AI teams and data teams to use that for the right purpose.
Yeah, it makes sense because if just like humans, these AI solutions and computing solutions try to do what we do faster. And it's just like humans, if you don't tell someone else, they don't know where everything's at. Yeah, if you don't communicate, then same thing with these solutions. They're not going to be able to know where all this data's at and how it intermingles.
Yeah, exactly. And how to secure all of it, right? So
so it's pretty interesting. So as a CISO, what are some of your biggest concerns?
Yeah, I think we talked about the IoT and we talked about the data security and all the considerations associated with data security. The third key feature that we need to talk about, Phillip, is the identity side of it, right? I mean, how does a typical attack start? A typical attack starts by social engineering or password spraying and figuring out credentials, taking advantage of forward privilege that these credentials have to perpetrate attacks, right? So I think the third key problem is just passive overprivilege. And I know the non-human identities is the buzzword of today in the cybersecurity practice, but the fact is that the risk associated with NHI has been around for a long time. So to me, that's the third key factor. You need to understand what your identities are. You need to figure out a way to curtail down the identities to the need to know and least privilege rather than passive privilege that many identities are not even using. But when they get popped, this extra privilege actually is really hurtful to organizations because that's what attackers are using to go exfiltrate data or go encrypt data for ransomware purposes. So the identity to data mapping, having a fuller context, I think that's kind of the third crucial piece of the puzzle. And the fourth thing also we have discussed, which is the AI side, securing AI and ensuring that you have kind of trained your organization to use AI in a productive fashion.
Yeah, very good. Because one of the things people overlook sometimes is just basic hygiene, and then we don't think one of the best trainings I ever took, actually before starting my security career when I was a sysadmin, is I took the NSA's InfoSec assessment methodology training.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it wasn't just based on digital files; it was based on paper files, file classifications, and so it really helped me understand. I was working in the digital realm, but it just made me think, okay, this is relatable to paper files, and you need to kind of look at it the same way. Even taking seriously paper files and stuff, making sure that they're stored properly, you have a clean desk, procedure in place, policy in place, that you lock the stuff when it's not in use, and you control access just much like you do the digital assets.
I loved what you said, Phillip, because I think in the chase of shiny objects, people forget that you can achieve a massive amount of security assurance by doing the fundamentals really, really well, right? What are those fundamentals? Making sure that your users are well trained, making sure that your infrastructure is well maintained and you have insight into company infrastructure, right? Making sure that patch and vulnerability management practice is really strong in a company. As you think about designing new solutions, making sure that security is built in, not bolted on at a later time, which is always more expensive and less effective, right? So I cannot agree with you more on like how important it is to focus on fundamentals and do it right.
Yeah, sometimes I think we're bad. You get into all this technology and it's very complex, but I think we overthink things sometimes.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, you need to take a step back and look at it from just a basic view and figure that out. You can get deep as you need to, but I think we overcomplicate things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a CISO, I know it's a very stressful role these days. I know you guys are on the hook for a lot of things. If companies gets breached, you're the one to blame, or you're the scapegoat, and there's a lot of pressure. But with that much pressure, how do you deal with the stress? What do you do to relieve the stress? What do you do to enjoy things and get your mind off of it once you step out of the office?
Yeah, great question, Phillip. So you are right. The CISO jobs are extremely stressful. There have been nights where I've had the phone next to me and I had the timer set to wake me up every 2 hours so that I can understand what the current situation of a particular incident or a situation is and talk with appropriate folks, right? So that's the level of stress that we live with. I have some very interesting hobbies that I've developed over the years to kind of keep my mind fresh and active. So one of the things that I love is kind of just going on a walk with my dog, and and I wrote actually a post on this on LinkedIn for those of you who are interested. But my post topic was why every CISO needs a dog.
I actually think I remember that post. Yeah, I read it.
Yeah. So I kind of he keeps me in that discipline where every evening I have to walk him. If I don't walk him, he will stare constantly at my face for like maybe hours on end. So that's my time to clear up my head, think about things other than cybersecurity, about family, about kids, and all those things, right? One more thing I like to do, Philip, is and probably not a hit on the home front with my wife, but I love to ride a motorcycle, and I have an old Kawasaki Vulcan from 2009, and it that's kind of my escape from the stresses of the cybersecurity world. And lastly, like because we work so much with technology, I feel like I need to do something other than technology whenever I can find spare time. So I will kind of just work on some pet project, build something through tools, kind of hang a shelf, whatever, right? I like to do anything other than tech for at least a few hours a week, just so that that's not the only thing on my mind.
It's not only important for your mental health and performing well, is sometimes you have to step away from it to be able to solve a problem.
Absolutely.
Because you work on something for hours and hours, you can't find it. And it's something obvious, but you step away and come back, and there it is.
I don't know if you've noticed it, Philip. And very interesting. But when you're solving a crossword puzzle, and if you are hung up on a puzzle, right? If you take a break and come back, like maybe an hour or two later, you will find that somehow your mind has figured out what the answer to that puzzle was that you couldn't do before, right? The same analogy applies here, where like we take a break from your kind of the problem that is plaguing you. When you come back to it, you will likely, because your mind is working in the background, you will likely have figured out some way to work through it, or who can help, or some of those things.
Yeah, it's kind of back to the overthinking thing. So your subconscious is kind of analyzing while you're taking your mind off on something else. So it's kind of interesting about your dog and getting out in nature, because that's one of the things I enjoyed during the pandemic, because it was a very stressful time. And I remember just getting out at night and getting out in nature, because during that time, there seemed to be more wildlife out because there's less cars around and stuff. And it was interesting. So we would go out at night, take walks, and it was just a good way to relax and just enjoy life. And it seems like that's one of the things we forget to do sometimes. We may be passionate and love our jobs, love the mission, but you need to enjoy life too.
Absolutely. I think that will make you a better professional, and that will also make you better to the team that you lead, because if you are going to be in that heightened state of anxiety or overwork, it is going to translate into stress for all of your team as well, because instead of taking into account their state of mind and how the challenges that they are dealing with, you're actually telling them what to do, or you are actually perhaps not in the nicest possible way, you are asking them responses and things of that nature, right? And I think taking a break, getting to a better state of mind, improves your relationship, not just inside of your family and others, but also with the people that you work with, because they are seeing, like in the event of an incident, the most important thing that you can do is to stay calm and stay focused, right? Taking the breaks and getting your mind to a better state allows you to be able to do that, and that actually empowers the people around you as well.
Yeah, and I think it's setting a good example for them, especially the younger folks coming into the company. They got to learn that work-life balance. So, if you're good example to them, they're going to perform better for you. And then if work-life balance is in the picture, then job retention is going to be higher.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's been great chatting with you here at RSA 2025. So before we close it out, just a couple things. What are you looking forward to at the conference this year? Is there anything that really excites you?
I love the innovation sandbox. So I want to go check out like how are the new startups thinking about the emerging challenges in cybersecurity space, and how are they kind of approaching solving those problems. That's one. I think the second thing that I'm really excited about, and this is going to be a hard thing to do, because it's not possible to walk one or two steps without hearing about AI. But I want to cut through the noise and get to understand the truly innovative ways of using real AI, not the fake AI, which is rule-based systems disguised as AI, but the true AI. So it's going to be a hard problem to cut through that noise. But I want to get a sense of like what are the innovative usage of AIs by cybersecurity companies.
Awesome. I look forward to hopefully some LinkedIn posts or blog posts about that.
Absolutely.
So before we close it out, do you have any parting words?
My parting words are that the best thing that you can do about cybersecurity space is to get comfortable with the ambiguity in this space, get comfortable with the pace of change in this space. Once you get comfortable with it, I think it will start to be much less of a stress and much more of an enjoyment, because you're constantly learning and you're constantly figuring out a way to improve your companies, your organizations, yourselves, and the people around you at the country, right? So I really do think that I don't think of cybersecurity as something that is kind of a meat grinder. I think of cybersecurity as like someone who has an active mind and an active imagination, who feed their curiosity and constantly drive change, right? So,
Those are great words.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining.
thank you, Phillip.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on the next episode.